Good morning, Jessica.
Hey, good morning. How
How
are
are
you?
you?
Good, good,
Good.
good.
Good. You and I gonna have to chat sometime.
Yeah, that probably, yeah.
Yeah, whoa, Susan, this looks really weird. The lighting.
You were like a character before.
Yes, it was my emoji or whatever they call it. Avatar.
The box.
Avatar.
I think that, and and then you need to, there's a different, did you follow this for doing, because you wanted to do it on the big screens, right? So you might need to leave Zoom and then come back.
It's still really blurry. Is it
Um,
turning that overhead light off? Oh,
well, it's using that camera, your computer camera instead of the camera up there. That's what I'm
okay.
saying. I think you need to do it the other
Okay.
way. Starting a Zoom meeting here.
Okay, just starting it.
Yeah, you need to do it on here.
So I'm gonna
Okay.
leave for a second,
Okay.
Jess.
Hey, Jessica,
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, I can't hear you, so hold on. Can you give me the meeting ID? Because we need to put in the meeting ID to do it in the room, in here.
Okay,
Know how to, I couldn't find it.
let me
Yeah.
just
She wants
let
to
me
put,
just log on again, and so I can find it because I've already started it. So hang
Oh, okay.
on.
Recording in progress.
Okay, see, this is why we don't.
Okay, you ready, Susan?
Yes,
It's 851 5849 6775.
is there a password?
I have to admit people.
Okay, I'm gonna leave and come back, so I
Okay.
don't have audio.
Dr. Parker is still an avatar.
Yeah, she's gonna leave and come back too.
Okay.
I think there's a way to zoom in. So that
Yeah. as long as you don't talk. Hey, Jess,
Hey.
we thought it was better that we get in this way.
Okay. I like seeing your face rather than your avatar.
Yeah. It just starts up that way.
Can you guys hear me okay? Or do I need more volume?
Maybe a little more volume.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Just got to figure out how to do that.
I can hear you fine. So it might be different between the two setups.
Is that a little better?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't want to blast you guys, but I'll do like 57%. So, I've admitted all of you guys. Okay, I'm going to admit Pravina here. And so, Dr. Parker, I'm just going to kind of welcome everyone, say who we are, and then just let them know we're proud to partner with South Central College, let them know that you're on our board and things like that and making this connection. And then I'll turn things over for you to do the introductions.
Sounds good.
Okay,
I don't know
and then
why.
I'll kind of just wrap things up at the end. Okay, I'm gonna admit Pravina and Bob.
Otherwise you could, I don't know how to manually make it go toward you.
Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Jessica.
Good
How
to
are
see
you today?
you. Good. It's a beautiful fall day.
Wow, it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Could you take charge of the weather and keep it like that for the next month?
I would love to. I think it's gonna drop off a little bit later this week.
Uh, let's
Good
see.
morning, Pravina. Thank you both for doing this.
Good morning. Just making sure you can hear me.
Good
Sounds
morning,
perfect.
Bob, Pravina. Thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Parker.
Well, I'm excited this is coming to fruition. So thanks to all of you guys. And
I'm
we
just
are
gonna move my light out of the focus. 1 second.
okay. Kelsey or Dr. Parker or Susan, do you guys know who a crystal H is? Should I just wait to admit people as we get a little bit closer?
I do not offhand.
I
Okay.
don't,
Okay, I'll wait and admit people once we get closer to the time.
okay,
Yeah, I know I sent some emails and they got forwarded to different people at their company, so might be a partner, just not someone I've met before.
Great.
Can I test sharing my screen? Because
can you guys see the PowerPoint?
it's not as a PowerPoint.
Yes.
Yep.
Even though it says draft, and I don't know how to do that from one screen. Because once I share it, then I don't get the Zoom stuff anymore.
You don't really need it anymore, do you?
I do because I can't share my screen when I'm like that, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm like this, I can't share my screen because I don't have the Zoom stuff. So then if I end it, then it's in this, when I'm sharing the screen, it's this way.
So you start,
I have,
you just have to minimize this.
oh, okay, and then do this, do it as a slide. See, it only does that.
So you're not gonna be able to see.
So I can only do it on my computer where I have two screens.
Well, then you should probably log out and go to your
So
computer.
Pravina, we were talking about this nice weather,
I don't even.
but later in the week, I think in the northern half of Minnesota, they're talking about snow showers. So that doesn't qualify as nice weather even here.
Right. We have 62 degrees today here in Maryland, so I can't. It's I find it funny because it's been very warm. Warmer than I'm used to.
Yeah, well, but it's gonna go from summer to winter here, I think.
Yeah, I'm afraid the same.
Okay, I'm done playing with the technology.
Okay. Well, I think in the next minute here, I'm gonna start to admit people just so they can kind of get into the Zoom. And then I'll get things going. Probably give it maybe 1 minute after 9 o'clock, just in case there's some people coming in, but we are
Okay.
recording so we can share with different people who have registered.
Okay, Jessica, Susan went back to her office where she has two screens so she can share the PowerPoint.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're gonna have to let her back in. I'm gonna go open the door and see how she's doing.
Okay.
I just needed to, yes.
Okay, she's good to go when you're ready for the PowerPoint.
Okay. Right. I'm gonna admit the folks in and then we'll just give it a couple minutes, okay? And then I'll kick it off and turn things over to Dr. Parker. And again, we appreciate all of you guys taking part and helping us share this information with folks in our region.
Is it sharing the screen?
Yes.
You see it?
So Susan, I don't know if you want to stop the share until they, until we introduce Bob and Pravina.
Okay. How are you doing that? Because I did make slides for those. So
Oh, okay. Okay.
I mean,
then,
do you
then
want
run
it?
the slides? Run the slides.
Well, because I can just skip the slide things if you want.
Just skip the slides until we introduce Pravina.
Okay, we're getting a few more folks here, so we're just good morning and we're admitting people to the Zoom, so just hold tight just a few more minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm well. Good to see you. Or at least a picture of you.
Yep, I'll be there in a sec.
Morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
Morning, Sarah and everyone. We're still getting a few people joining here, so
Ta-da!
There you are.
magic for a Monday morning. All right, we might have a few more people still joining, but it is 9:01, so I believe we will get this webinar started. Good morning and welcome, everyone. We're excited to have you for the discussion of strengthening the American supply chain. My name is Jessica Beyer, and I serve as President and CEO of Greater Mankato Growth, Inc. Greater Mankato Growth is the regional chamber of commerce for more than 900 members. We also serve as the economic development organization for the Mankato North Mankato MSA, which includes Blue Earth and Nicollet counties in South Central Minnesota. So we're proud to partner with South Central College as part of National Manufacturing Month activities in hosting this webinar. South Central College is a key higher education institution in our region, and we appreciate Dr. Annette Parker. She serves on the Greater Mankato Growth, Inc. Board of Directors, and for her utilizing some of her state and national connections to bring forward this content this morning. So at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Dr. Parker to do some further introductions before we get going with our content. Thank you, Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Jessica, and thanks for being a host for this important conversation today. I'd like to introduce first Pravina Raghavan, who serves as the Director of the Holding Manufacturing Extension Partnership, MEP program at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Since 1988, MEP's industry experts have worked side by side with partners in the public and private sector to strengthen communities and U.S. manufacturing. Ms. Raghavan has more than 20 years of experience providing advisory services to businesses in startup growth, expansion, and maturity phases of development. She most recently served as Executive Vice President in the Division of Small Business and Technology Development for Empire State Development, the New York State Economic Development Agency. In that role, she led and managed the New York Manufacturing Extension Partnership, which provides more than $50 billion in economic impact for the state. Created and implemented the $100 million New York Forward Loan Fund and Empire State Digital Resource for COVID-19 small business recovery, and designed and implemented the state's $800 million COVID-19 small business recovery grant program. She also served as Deputy Associate Administrator of Investment and Innovation at the U.S. Small Business Administration and was responsible for the Small Business Investment Companies Program, Small Business Innovation Research Program, and High Growth Entrepreneur Initiatives. She also served as District Director of SBA's New York District Office. Ms. Raghavan previously served as Senior Advisor to then Deputy Secretary of Commerce, Bruce H. Andrews. In that role, she worked on a large number of economic and operational issues across the department, including strategic planning and policy development on various topics, including emergency management, economic development, international trade, weather, budget, contracts, staffing, and technology development. Before joining the federal government, Ms. Raghavan was a vice president for MTV and BET Networks, a founder and owner of a global strategy advisory firm and business development director for Mrs. PLC, one of the world's largest banking software companies. She was also an associate at Broadview International, a London investment bank, and worked at AT&T in several finance and management roles, including her last 5 years as Mergers and Acquisitions Director for Europe and Asia. Ms. Raghavan has an MBA in Finance from Seton Hall University and a BS in Finance from the Pennsylvania State University. Thank you, Pravina, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. And it's Mises, but don't worry about it. It's a British thing.
Yes. And I'd like to say that I also served for the last year, a little over a year, on Pravina's advisory board. Next, I'd like to introduce, and maybe I don't need to introduce, but I will, Bob Kill. And he's president and CEO of Enterprise Minnesota, the state's leader in helping small and medium-sized manufacturing companies compete and grow profitably. Enterprise Minnesota's services include strategy, revenue growth, talent and leadership development, ISO quality management systems, and continuous improvement. It also leads 10 peer councils composed of over 100 manufacturing executives who learn from each other and from Enterprise Minnesota's extensive network of experts in all areas of running a successful business. Bob has guided Enterprise Minnesota in a thriving consulting organization. Under his leadership, the organization has become the leading voice for how manufacturers contribute to Minnesota's economy and local community life. He has also built strong public-private partnerships in support of the state's manufacturing community. One of Bob's significant accomplishments was piloting the State of Manufacturing Survey, now in its 15th year. Bob has appeared before the Minnesota State Legislature and the U.S. Congress, emphasizing the high value of manufacturing as a driver of Minnesota's economy. Bob's resume includes serving in leadership roles for computer data systems and network equipment manufacturers in the Midwest. Today, he serves on the Minnesota Agriculture and Economic Development Board, as well as other software, technology, and business incubator boards. Bob grew up in Morris and graduated from the University of Minnesota Morris with a degree in economics. He and his wife, Jean, reside in Eden Prairie, have 2 adult children, and almost as many grandchildren as me, 6. Thank you, Bob, for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. I'm not sure where you got that, but it's a great resume. But it's wonderful to be here. And yes, I do know a number of the people, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. We can all work together to make manufacturing even more powerful in your area and across the state.
Thank you. And so I'll have Susan start the slideshow and we'll get going.
I'm up first, so I just want to thank Jessica. Thank you for holding this and inviting me, Dr. Parker. Thank you for your service on our board and putting this all together. And Bob, it's always a pleasure to be on any panel with you. So I appreciate that. So my name is Pravina Raghavan. We can go to the next slide. I'm from NIST Manufacturing Extension Partnership. You're probably like, what is that? So NIST is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. We are three, what they call external extramural programs at NIST that focus on manufacturing and working with the public. We are part of the Department of Commerce. Most people know that, which I got to work on some of those fish issues that Dr. Parker talked about. So next slide, please. We are all over the country. We are in your great state as well. NIST itself has 8 joint institutes and centers. We've got 3 centers of excellence. And then we actually set the atomic clock. People don't realize, but we have 2 places for our atomic clock signal. So your phone, if you ever have a problem with your phone's time, it's because we're setting it here at NIST. We have 51 MEP centers, which is what I'm going to talk to you about, located in every state in Puerto Rico. And then we have 17 Manufacturing USA institutes, which also help with the adoption of advanced technology for manufacturers. Next slide. So what is the MEP National Network? If you didn't know, we are not MEP. A lot of people call us MEP. We are not a Muppet, as I like to say, but we have over 1,400 actual manufacturing experts that work hand in hand with small businesses. We are public-private partnerships, so all our partners are privately owned, but we are the public foundation for that. We really leverage partnerships, is a big word you'll be hearing, to actually grow small and medium manufacturers. Our entire mission is to strengthen and empower small and medium manufacturers. So you might be asking, next slide, what do we do? Well, this is just kind of some of the services that we have, from workforce, supply chain, to tech scouting, really working on risk mitigation, coming in and doing design and build, ISO, quality management, lean. All the centers participate in this, and this is just a small sample of the types of services. It is a fee for service, so we work hand in hand with small entrepreneur, but what we do is make sure that it's affordable, to make sure that you get that access to the manufacturing talent that we have. Next slide. This is a prerequisite for every government agency. We like to tell you how well we've been doing with your taxpayer money. I am proud to say that the MEP program, after 35 years, continues to be very successful. Last year alone, we helped create and retain over 116,000 jobs, $18.8 billion in new and retained sales, $6.4 billion in total investment in manufacturing, and then $2.5 billion in cost savings. You might say, well, okay, that's great. Just to give you an idea, for every dollar that the US government invests into this network, it's able to return it 18 times. So we have an 18 return for every dollar. And since 1988, it is our 35th anniversary, we've been able to help over 140,000 small manufacturers across the country, help and retain over 1.5 million jobs and over $144.4 billion. So I just want to thank the network. They do a lot of hard work with you and your trust in us. Next slide. So we're here to talk about mitigating supply chain vulnerabilities. It is actually one of our network's one of the 3 priorities of our network. The first one is narrowing the workforce gap, mitigating supply chain vulnerabilities, and leveraging technology. And what's interesting, these all interplay with each other. If you are a small manufacturer, you already know this. Sometimes you don't have enough workforce, but you get orders in. Can you use technology? And you don't know where to find the supply. And we're here to help on all 3 places with our partnerships with other people. We don't do it alone. We're a mighty army, but can't do it on our own. So we have a lot of partnerships, including universities and community colleges and technical colleges to help us with the workforce, but also looking at how we develop technology that has been proven to put into manufacturers. Next slide. Supplier scouting, one of the things we do most, supplier scouting, we bring this up. 2 years ago, we were actually, MEP was actually put into the White House's executive order about making the future is made in America. So making sure that we had American supply for a lot of our industries. Next slide, please. What we do is we supply scout for these types on behalf of the United States government. We are not GSA. We don't do the contracting. What we do is work with agencies when they're trying to find US domestic manufacturers. We work through our centers by putting out a supplier scouting request and getting it out to them. And then they work with small, medium companies to try to find out if they can actually have the capacity to fulfill these, and we give that back to the agency. If they don't, they're able to get what we call waivers, which means they can get non-US suppliers to come in. But we're really looking at filling in that supply chain gap and being able to identify people who they may not know normally because they're not on a GSA list, which is the General Services Administration, or they may not do work with the government. And if you want to think about that, this is even for bigger OEMs that we have. Sometimes you are a piece of a puzzle, but the OEM doesn't know how to find you. We try to find that person who's in that piece. Next slide, please. It's really easy. Companies can also use our supplier scouting. If you're looking for some supply that you can't find, a specific fabric or a unit, we actually just, it's on our website, you put in a supply chain request. It says, hey, this is what I'm looking for. We distribute it throughout our network, get the results and return it back. We do it both for the private companies as well as the US government and large OEMs. And it's a way to make sure that we're looking through to have small, medium manufacturers part of the supply chain for the US government. Next slide, please. You may not know this, but there's already a advanced manufacturing from both the Department of Commerce and the White House talking about how important it is to make sure that we have more supply domestic manufacturing here in this country. So next slide. Earlier this year, we were able to give each center $400,000 to start a supply chain optimization and intelligence network. What does this mean for you? It really means we're able to sit there, understand what your capacity is for your company, be able to log that in our database. And as we build and expand maps for domestic manufacturing, a lot of you may have heard of the Chips and Science Act, which is bringing semiconductor industries back here. We're also doing that for the Department of Energy for clean tech and EV. We're able to actually map out and see where there's a domestic supplier and also help people who potentially want to pivot into one of these new areas or open up a new line of business by actually sitting down with you and looking on your looking in your factory floor, figuring out where could you pivot, where do you get the resources, and using the MEP program to help you go into a new line of business. Next slide, please. So just so you deal with type of data we'll be collecting and we're getting that we're going to be sharing also through the public is some of the large OEMs, different industries in the state, non-manufacturing supply chain. Think about logistics. There's a lot of logistics items. Getting a part from point A to B sometimes is the harder part than actually finding it. And assessing really where we have gaps and where we can grow industries in different states so that we can be able to support all these new reshoring efforts from the federal government. Next slide. I bring this up because a lot of people say, well, how do we help small, medium manufacturers? Sorry, there must be a build on this, so you could just click through. Didn't realize. We actually work with, we identify where there's a domestic need. We actually work with the MEP centers to develop and figure out the capabilities of all the small, medium manufacturers in our database. Then we recommend to the small, medium manufacturer, do you need training or equipment? And we help them implement it so that they can actually hit the manufacturing need. And we were able to do this during COVID. We got emergency funding of $50 million, and we're able to help over 7,000 companies nationwide to fulfill different manufacturing needs, but most importantly, to get to more PPE, protective equipment that was desperately needed that wasn't manufactured here, and have them pivot and work with them hand in hand. And what we're trying to do with the supply chain optimization is to do that exact same thing, but actually grow different industries that haven't had domestic manufacturing in decades, such as semiconductor, electrical vehicles, and also really looking to clean tech and energy. Next slide. So I always love to talk about success stories. So how do we make it happen? This is a great one. We had in Florida. Florida Makes is also part of our, and I wish I could pick a Minnesota one, Bob. I swear next time I will do that for you. But this one's a good one. Within 48 hours, they needed defibrillators after suffering from the hurricanes in a field hospital. They were able to put the supply chain request out on the supplier scouting. Within 48 hours, they were able to actually get the supplier who makes it to come through because they had a connection with our Massachusetts MEP and get the over $2 million worth of equipment down into Florida within 1 week, desperately needed. But that's a great success story. But there are many of these that we do both for the federal government, but also what I was saying, B2B, both businesses, small businesses looking to get supply and matches can also use this service. Next slide. So I just want to quickly go, since I have a captive audience, what else we do, because that's about supplies. And I know this was about supply chain, but how else can we help your company use resources? One of the things is when you're looking at different technology, remember I said we have the atomic clock? Well, I have several other labs that do a lot of interesting things. And we have this program called Matter, which is MEP assisted technology and technical resource program, which looks about helping small manufacturers understand how in using different technology or standards that might be coming out, how do you adopt them? You might have a question like, I don't know how to do this. I have this interesting problem in my line, but I'm using sensors and they're not working. Is there a different material or something I can do? We take those requests and see if we can get a lab to come and work with you for free to see if they can figure out how to expedite your problem in a better solution with technology. This is open to the public. You just put in a request. We look at it. If we can't help you because it's not a technical problem, we find another resource that might be able to help you with that problem. And so I like to bring this up because technology is scary when you don't know it. But once you learn it, you're like, oh yeah, I figured it out. And I always think about when I first got my first computer, and I was like, how do you turn? I was also from the days when you had to actually program the computer to tell it to do things. And now you look at a touch of a button, you have all this, but sometimes you don't know what's going through. And that's what we do with Matter. We take the lab research and make it digestible for people to actually use in practical day-to-day matters. Next slide, please. We also, if this is too much, we also have a concierge service, which I call the MEP Advanced Tech Team. They'll come in, work with your company, and then figure out all the different resources that the federal government has in advanced tech, including Manufacturing USA, the labs that we do. And they actually sit down and figure out your problem and then try to do what I'd call soft intros to different resources to help you get better. And they work, they're across all the centers. And you can also get us at NIST.gov. We'll put you in touch and they'll come and spend about an hour or two just finding out what's going on in your business. And is there a way we could use advanced tech to help you? Next slide. And I keep talking about advanced tech, and I just want to say Industry 4.0 is another way of saying sensors, using robots, cobots. The MEP centers are really good at this, coming in hand, looking at your floor, figuring out what technology works. One of the other areas we're talking about narrowing the workforce gap, and it goes hand in hand in using different technology. We all know there's a lot of stats saying how many millions of jobs are out there. The problem is we're not getting as big of a population. So we have to train new workforce, but on top of that, we're still going to have a gap. And this is about bringing in technology, proven technology into your businesses. And how do we do that? By working hand in hand with an MEP center. They know the technology. They'll even let you try it out, figure out how to optimize your floor to make sure it works well. And this is one of the things we do very well is to try to look at it and then help you transfer it. So I love going to visit factories and someone goes, I have a 3D printer. And it's always in the corner. That's why I'm pointing. And you're like, well, what do you use it for? No idea, but we got these really nice tchotchkes we can make with you. And that's not what it's meant for. So what the MEP Center can do is come in and say, well, do you need an interesting part? How do we help you use this so that it actually becomes a revenue generating machine and using that technology in the best way? Next slide, please. We are not a workforce program, but we work with a lot of workforce programs and it's critical to what we do. And on our website, if you go by state, it tells you the different workforce areas that we are working both by training, reskilling, retraining, upskilling, as well as helping with some recruitment efforts through finding and building the pipeline. And the reason I bring this up is when you're inundated with a lot as a small business, you just don't know where to go. And this is a handy resource. Just go, okay, I have this question. Is there somebody out here? The MEP network definitely can do it. But also if you were interested in a certain type of program that your state may not offer, all these states would be happy to sit there and talk to you with your state MEP to make sure that we've got the right resource for you. Next slide. I bring this up. We have the job quality toolkit. Anyone can use it. It's on our website. It's a great assessment to find out what is the job quality for your employment. It may not just be wages. It's a way of taking a framework and saying, have you had these discussions as you're trying to look and encourage and value your workers and bringing in new workers? Have you thought about your HR processes and what's going on and what is the quality of your job and what is your workforce looking for? And I bring this up with such low unemployment and such low turnover. People are trying to retain their workers. And this is just another way of using something very simple, taking it out, doing an assessment and going, okay, here are where we have some gaps. How do we do that? And of course, I'm going to say the MEP Center can help you figure that or work with your other partners, but It's a toolkit that is free. Anyone can use it, and it's based on the Baldrige Excellence Framework, which actually looks as quality as a measure. And so it looks at taking not monetary, but actually the other value systems that people have on why they stay in work and how do you improve it for your entire workforce. So I like to, next slide, I love to say we love to work with a lot of people. We're here to help you. That's our job here at NIST MEP with the MEP National Network. If there's things that you're thinking about technology transfer, workforce, access to facilities or resources, or even trying to find regional collaborations, your MEP Center is in the center of it. They have a lot of partnerships they work with, but we're always happy to help and try to figure out ways to make sure that you get the supplies you need as well as the workforce as you're thinking of bringing on new business here in the United States. Last slide. And it's always easy. If you ever need to talk to us, it's easy. Here's our contact information, which I know Jessica will get out to everybody later, but we're only a one click away, and everything I've mentioned is on our website, and we're always happy to help. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Dr. Parker.
Thank you, Pravina. And so I'm going to move right into our state leader, Bob Kill, and so that we can get to some questions and answers maybe at the end. So Bob? You're muted, Bob.
Myself.
There
Again,
you go.
thank you, Pravina, for a great presentation. I've been a part of the MEP network for years, and every time I see that presentation, I realize that there's more things that we could even be doing. This is just an example that manufacturing is located across the state of Minnesota. Our staff is located where they are to try to reach manufacturers in their homes. About 70% of our manufacturers make components, and about 30% are system and OEM companies. Pravina mentioned earlier about the business results, and you all kind of scratched your head and said, yeah, we love to measure things. Well, we actually do measure things. When we work with a client, we have anticipated business results. As we wrap up any kind of a service, we have what we call refined business results, and then quarterly reported business results that is part of our relationship with NIST as being the Minnesota MEP Center. Next slide, please. We have been the MEP Center for as long as it's existed, 35 years. And I wanted to set the stage a little bit on Minnesota manufacturing that, there's 8,500 manufacturers, but the number I'd like to focus on is under 10 employees is 5,000. That's a pretty similar demographics. That is the group that we really want to find out how to give them the kind of tools that they can grow to become one of the 10 to 49 employee companies. Because the saying is, as all music was once new, all companies were once small. The other statistic, which is, by the way, outdated already, is the average weekly wage. Manufacturing is the unique industry that has a higher wage ratio than jobs. So, there's about a 20% multiple of wage over jobs across the state. And that really, really becomes key to the communities. Next slide, please. If you look at it regionally around Mankato, this is really a powerhouse of manufacturing. We all know of a number of companies, but Mankato and the related counties long ago embraced manufacturing. There happened to be a river, so there's a foundry in downtown Mankato that grew up alongside that river, but they've embraced the freeway system. They've really embraced the technical college, both in Faribault and in Mankato. And that's why it's one of the most strong technical colleges in our state. Next slide, please. So our mantra is helping manufacturing enterprises grow profitably. But so through that, we really are focused, as Pravina said, on a fee-based consulting mission. We're not in the business of giving things away, though we will look for grants to defray a portion of that for the very small companies. And I'll come back and talk about one program we have at this particular time. But what I really wanted to touch on here was really the manufacturer is the kingpin, but the elected officials have to know what manufacturing does in their district. The media has to have a positive relationship. We use the state of manufacturing. So we do a number of things to bring visibility. And I think those things are really related to public-private partnerships. any way you think about it. But we also have our magazine, the Enterprise Minnesota Magazine. It's published quarterly, and it has 6 to 8 articles in each one about success. But 2 years ago, we started that we want to have one technical college highlighted one way or another in every issue. And that's really become one of the most well-read article in each magazine. I think that's really a powerful example of how our technical colleges are really embracing the business community. But in the end, it's about increasing the awareness, strengthening our stakeholder base, generating more outside investment for manufacturers, and then to make sure that they're getting the visibility in their community and state and region. Next slide, please. So how does this fit into our own goals? Well, first of all, we want to focus on revenue and value added with those measurable and sustainable business results that Pravina talked about. That really is a key grade for all of us to be a key partner in the manufacturing extension partnership. And we believe we're doing our job. I mentioned the voice. Minnesota manufacturing needs a voice, especially the small mid-size. Of course, 3M, Polaris, the snowmobile manufacturers, they all have their own voice. The small component manufacturers and the smaller OEMs do not have a voice. So we believe that's how we do it, through our network of allies, whether it's our technical colleges, our industry, our media, elected officials. We feel this is equally as important as us focusing on the consulting side of the business. In the end, if we provide the kind of business results for our consulting and for our visibility campaigns, we will grow the client base. And in our state, there was 8,500 manufacturers. There are many to touch on. Dr. Parker hosted a focus group recently, and out of that came a new client for us, a 12-employee company going through leadership transition from dad to daughter and son, which was not in our database, in a kind of a far-reaching community in Minnesota, which there are some. In every one of the 12 focus groups we did this year, a new opportunity has come forward of companies who came to that to talk and meet with other business leaders in their community. That's how we can grow the client base of those smaller manufacturers. But lastly, we all have to talk about workforce, whether it's our clients' challenges to keep and grow our workforce, our own. I am delighted to say that we have a budget for 34 employees, and for the first time in 3 years, we have 34 employees. We are at full. It's taken really a challenge to recruit, but I think the biggest thing that we hear about is to retain talent, is to make sure it's a place that people want and are proud to be at, along with obviously competitive salary and benefits. Next slide, please. So I mentioned some of these. This is a little redundant. From State of Manufacturing workshops, our magazine, the weekly report. It's more of a news article, kind of current events in manufacturing. And I say to anyone on this call, if you've got anything that you think might like to be in that newsletter, send it to myself and I'll make sure I get it to the editor. It's just never know why we think it's important to be in that weekly newsletter. Social media, and then legislative relations. In Minnesota, we have a very diverse manufacturing economy. It doesn't get quite the visibility sometimes that other states might get if it's a very strong blue collar community or something like that. So we regularly have to use all of our tools in front of the legislature. I'm pleased to say that this past year, they did give us a small grant of $500,000 this year and next year, earmarked specifically for companies under 35 employees, because that's one area we feel that they know they have to do something. I think Pravina said they know they have to do something. They don't know where to start. So we really feel that this grant, and it's already shown a number of opportunities come forward. So listen, if you know of a small manufacturer, and we all do, and you think there's something that we could consult with them, help with them, introduce them to another partner that they could maybe use, please step forward and let us know. Next slide, please. So from our state of manufacturing, the reason we went after this very small or 35 employees or less grant is this chart right here. The key investment areas for manufacturers last year, and it didn't change a lot this year, which will come out on November 9th. You can see that the very small manufacturers just aren't making all the investments they need to grow their business. When Pravina talked about supplier scouting, we have a person dedicated to it, but the very small manufacturers are going to be harder to get to. We have 30 OEMs that we're carrying on interviews right now on what are some of the key criteria you're going to look forward in the next year when you go looking for new suppliers. So we think that can help the very small because they need to be more aggressive in growing their revenue. You can see the larger companies at 64%, smaller at 48%. But even expanding sales within the United States, 35 versus 50. And they don't have the staff and development culture to really take on some of the new OEM opportunities. So out of the data that we're going to gather from those 30 OEMs, many of which are clients of ours, we will be able to then reach out to the smaller component manufacturers in our database and aggressively recommend areas that they might want to make investments, some related to us, some not, but areas in which they can become a better supplier and get preferred treatment from some of the OEMs right here in the great state of Minnesota. A few years ago, we helped Toro do that. And today I'm proud to say that all the components for a Toro lawnmower come from Minnesota, except they buy their engines from Wisconsin. We just couldn't figure out where to find a manufacturer of the engine, but the engines come from Wisconsin. And prior to that, they were sitting on boats coming across 100,000 or so at a time. And Toro didn't suffer on their supply issues during this past 5 years because their suppliers were in the Midwest. I think that's a testimony of this supplier scouting and supply chain challenge that MEP is taking on can really help. Next slide, please. So our team is across the state. I'm not going to go into it, but Dr. Parker mentioned it ranges from strategy to ISO, talent leadership. I think you can imagine the individuals focused on talent leadership are really busy. But the one point that's interesting is this has evolved from 25 years ago. We were continuous improvement. They used to call us the lean people. And now it's evolved to being really an integrated approach to help these organizations across the state. And I apologize, this chart was made before we added the young person who's heading up our supply chain. And she's also one of the key consultants that's working with it. So we're excited to have the full repertoire of all these people. And our people are our employees. We do about 96% of our consulting with our own team. Next slide, please. So my last slide really touches on how we see strategic partners. And I want to go right to that line that says Alexandria Technical Colleges. These 6 colleges, plus one that somehow got left off, Southeast, all hosted focus groups during our state of manufacturing, and all have new leadership except for South Central over the last year that have really embraced manufacturing, I think because of what they see as the great value. Along the bottom are regional economic development organizations. That's part of the initiative foundations, which we're blessed to have. Pravina, that they are regional economic development as part of 3M, the McKnight Foundation, which is the 3M. And so great partners of 11 to 18 states each, and really a great partnership for all of what we do. And across the top are really 2 lines of industry leaders that are very dedicated to making manufacturing be successful. And I have to touch on Productivity Inc. Productivity Inc. is the largest machining and robotics distributor in the nation. They cover 14 states located right here. And I also say that we have Pine Technical College president is on our board. And so we want our technical community colleges to always be on our board of advisors. And with that, I thank you very much for this rapid presentation, but thanks for having me, and I'll turn it back to Dr. Parker.
Dr. Parker, you're on mute.
Thank you, Pravina. So I'll just open it up for any questions or comments. We've got, what, about 20 minutes, Jessica?
Yes, about 20 minutes.
And so we can field any questions that you might have. I guess people can just unmute if you have questions, comments, anything.
Or any specific questions outside of the presentation maybe you have for either agency.
It's too early in Minnesota, I guess on Monday.
Monday morning, huh?
Sarah, you have to have a question.
I seen her unmute.
You know me too well. So, Pravina, could you tell us a little bit more about the technology assistance? Like, I mean, our company, we're always trying to look for ways to automate, help fill some gaps with humans and just improve our product flow, etc. And you talked about technology assistance. I'd like to know more about that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure Bob will answer it better than I will, but since he helps with the MVP Center, but we actually do this across the country. They come in and they actually just talk to you, right? And saying, what are you looking at? What are the new trends? And part of it is keeping abreast of the trends, right? And understanding what will work in the context of you. I always say, putting bad technology in whatever, like everybody's talking about AI right now. I don't think everyone's going to be able to use AI in their infrastructure, but is it something that, we're looking through system diagnostics that is a form of AI that we could use and say, okay, you have a lag time on this part of the line. Why? Was there something going on? Is it people oriented? Is it a machine that can come and help and look at that and help study what's going on? And if there's something new that you want to try out too, it's a lot of money to put in something new without having it. So bringing in an expert who said, hey, we may have something here that you can try. We can demo it for you for 30 days. See if you get the ROI you thought of that. And I think, quite a few of the centers do that. They've got equipment and tech labs that they can use to come in and help just answer those kind of questions. And if you're really like, I don't even know, it's like, all right, we were laughing. We brought someone a shrink wrap machine and they were like, oh my God, you could actually do that. You're like, it is as simple as that as technology, right? People are thinking there's like robots going around all over the place. I'm like, it could be something as simple as that, or using sensors where you have a blind spot because, you're always having problems same place in the line. So it is actually bringing someone to come down and do an assessment for you and then sitting there and talking through what are the different options and making it comfortable, right? I think that's part of the reason people don't adapt technologies. They read something, they're like, I don't think it'll work here, but trying to prove it to you that it will work. And if not, is there something better that we haven't thought of, but keeping close to those trends. I don't know.
So, Sarah, we're kind of excited to look. Two of the people you saw in that picture come to us from operational management where they integrated a lot of automation. So it's something we're trying to understand how to better bring to all of our clients. But one of the tools we have integrated is I can't think of the exact trade name, but it's machine monitoring. So it can be put on to a system, captures this data, sends it up to the cloud, and then you can see how efficient that technology is actually working. We think we know uptime really well. We tend to know it from the way we used to do it. So there is technology out there that we're embracing. We're working with Alexandria Technical College right now. They have a grant, and we're working with them to try to develop curriculum around artificial intelligence and how it would apply to optimizing predictive things, maybe predicting machine failures better than we think we do now. But we see a couple of other the technical colleges pursuing something maybe like that. So trying to work with them in the curriculum of out in front. But the thing that I think we're excited about is, working with clients to make sure that if they're thinking of automation, that we have a lot of partners that we can maybe lean or point to for people. But one that everybody's interested in that's had great results is with machine monitoring, to the point we've had to buy a second system. And it's not really to lead to new services for us. It's to really help the manufacturer find new ways to increase productivity to help deal with this challenge of keeping enough people.
So are you familiar with the technology grants available through DEED? Is that the federal, is that in NIST funds?
No, so there's two funds inside the states there. One that both you and I don't want to say in public what we think of it. Because
Yeah.
you applied and found out the rules were different as you got involved, which
Right on.
it's actually a treasury grant, so it's not really controlled.
Okay,
There is a grant that's available on integrating automation equipment for the training. And we can certainly help you there. And that one's monitored by the state. So we've had a number of clients that we've helped get smaller grants for specific automation training. And the definition of training is pretty general.
yep. Good. We'll be calling.
Like it.
It's so, I don't know if the others, Jessica, that are not on screen can ask questions. Are you getting them in chat or anything?
I have not received any notes in chat, but please feel free to either speak up as part of the discussion, or if you're not comfortable, enter something into the chat. We've got a few minutes left here. I do see there's one other person who's unmuted, but there's no name. No other questions?
My name is Bern Beckman, and I work at MEI in Mankato. I have a question with regards to any tools or predicted resources to allow a look as to a predictive course that we could be on for material availability. We struggle every day, every week, every month with material shortages, specifically in the electronics industry and many other parts of the elevators that we build. So we're not a grain elevator, we're an up and down elevator company, hydraulic and traction elevators. Are there, just throwing it out there, if anyone else knows of any resources or tools to provide some predictability or forecast for what we see happening with some of the main components of several industries that are outside of our own immediate industry. And I don't know if anyone else has had any luck with locking down that type of information, but I will mute myself and listen to see if anything like that is available.
So I think you said Minnesota elevator. Is that,
Correct. Minnesota elevator.
Yep. Okay. I'm familiar with your firm. Well, I don't have an answer, but what I will do is take your question to our peer councils. We have 10 of them, soon to be 11, because I suspect someone in there might have it. I'll take it as a question, if that's okay, and
Yep.
see over the
Sure.
next few days, weeks actually, because most of them have held their meeting for this month. But it's a way to take what I'd call a fast burn to those councils and share it with them and see what other people have done. And there might be some feedback I could get for you. So
That would be great. I appreciate that.
Bob, if you get the problem, I was gonna say, we can run it through the network too. See, sometimes it may not be in Minnesota, so I don't want anyone to get angry at me, but it may be
I
in the
made
state
it notes
closer.
that we can
Yeah.
approach it both ways. Yeah.
Well, and the materials that we secure we're securing them from all over the United States. And a little bit overseas. So that's the kind of broadband that I'm looking at as far as the overall forecast of what can be what can we learn.
Yep. Now, happy to take that back and see what we can tell you. Intelligence.
So,
Thank you.
what we can do is if you're comfortable with it, we'll just share your information with Pravina and Bob. So
Yeah,
you
that's
have
fine.
connection. We have it through registration.
Sure, that's more than fine.
Great, thanks. Okay.
Still have about 12 minutes left.
If there's not any questions for the speakers, is there any other dialogue? I know maybe we want to just have an understanding of who's in the room a little bit, and if there's any local kind of questions or pieces. I don't know, Dr. Parker, if that would be helpful for you to have some of those connections.
Absolutely. Of course, we could share, if everyone's okay, we can share the contact list for, and then I can recognize who, I don't see who's in the waiting list, but they might already work with the college, but happy to reach out.
So we can share the contact list, and then also we are recording this webinar. And so, the slides and the information that was presented, because you're registered, you would have access to those and share them with your organizations as well.
So, I would ask, maybe Pravina, if you could talk a little bit about the new strategic plan and how that relates to the executive order. It is always intriguing to me, and then what that means for bringing the chips back. And I always ask the question, I know there's some conversation in Minnesota right now about what is our role in that environment. And so if you could just kind of talk about what's going on nationally and where you all are working on that effort.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. So like I said, we have a strategic plan, and our strategic plan is a little different. It's not just for the government agency, it's actually for the whole national network. So you can imagine 51 partners, 51 strategic plans. How do you make it all work? And our goals are audacious, right? We have a vision, but we've actually narrowed it down onto what small medium manufacturers need most, which is narrowing the workforce gap, looking at supply chain, mitigating supply chain vulnerabilities and making sure they're resilient. And then how do you leverage technology? And they all interplay. Like if you can leverage technology, you might not need 6 bodies. You could say you might only need 3 bodies. So how do you do that? And part of the reason we've been looking at this, especially from the supplier scouting, was we were in an executive order which agencies, federal agencies, had to use MEP, not had to, strongly suggested to use MEP to find out that everyone, that they would use domestic supply. And how do you do that? It's really hard when you're buying from a large OEM and they go, well, yeah, we supply maybe 60% comes from the US, the other 40% we're not sure. So part of using the supplier scouting was for us to actually go out to the market and say, well, that other 40%, there are people out there. And that that can supply those component pieces, because as I said, the government is a large OEM, buys large from OEMs, we don't actually put it together. And so based on that, we actually put more money into making sure every center had a supply chain person that could actually go ahead and look and scour the markets when we get these requests, but then also bringing the large OEM to the tables to say, what is it that you need for somebody to be even on your supply list? Not that you're going to guarantee a contract, but do they have the right cyber health? Do they have the right financial health? And working with an MEP center to get them ready and geared up so that we didn't have as many waivers. And that is as we're trying to build industries, because obviously we're making a $52 billion bet on the semiconductor industry about bringing fab manufacturing. So the chip that's in your phone, chip that's in your laptop, making a better packet for it, better components, looking at the polymers and everything that go into it, and then actually producing it here. And those are very expensive arenas. But I always say this, everybody concentrates about 5 to 7 states that say, oh, we have some of the big names coming. And what we do say is it's going to be a national problem, right? It isn't about just those 5 or 7, but they're going to need the resources for it, especially when you look at building a fab, you're going to need metal, you're going to need welders, you're going to need the ability to have that go across state lines and really help to build that back in this country. And that's some of the things we're trying to coordinate. And just recently, about 3 weeks ago, the federal government put out a notice of a funding for opportunity under the CHIPS, looking for small consortiums to work together to bring back some of the supply that needs to work, is needed to be able to do these large fabs, and giving out grants for that or incentives for that. And that just got released about 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago, and it's really looking at how do you do from the smaller end. They made the big incentives that went out earlier this year for the large semiconductor manufacturers, but all the support that needs to go in with it. And I mean really truly support. And how do we onshore a lot of that production back here, or at least shore it into friendly countries? And so we're spending a lot of effort understanding the semiconductor area. It's not that we need to help the Intels or the ASMCs or the Microns of the world, but they are going to need to know further down their tier who's available and what's possible in this country. And so we're trying to map it out from that perspective. The other end, what are you missing in the small places? Because they can build a fab, but they need all the material and everything else that goes with it. And the big thing will be workforce. How do you train up a workforce that can go and work in these areas? And it is going to be across, I think, state lines, which is what's going to be interesting to see is how states play together, because you're not going to be able to only source it from one place at this point.
Thank you, Pravina. I think you have a question. I seen a text
Oh.
come across from Sarah.
Sure. I mean,
Yeah, sorry, the computer
Yeah.
keeps
Yep.
spell checking you to Praveen instead of
oh,
Pravina.
sorry. Don't worry about it. Yes. Well, sure. It's the male version of my name. Why not? Yeah. So could you register as a supplier of the national? Yes. You can just ask the MEP Center to put you in their database and you're automatically in there, or you can just send us at nis.mep.gov and we can put you into our to the supply chain database. But I always encourage you to go to your local MEP Center because they're going to get the specs quicker and be able to match up. It all feeds up in here.
Good.
All right.
And
Well,
so, one last, maybe comment, Pravina, I know you weren't there, but a bunch of folks that work with you and, through NIST were at the White House, 2.5 weeks ago? And is that the grant that you referred to, launching, that's gonna help, with the workforce?
Yeah, so so there is also part of it is Manufacturing USA, which I put together, which is also on the slide with me, is up for the working for the workforce. So they're putting out a grant, they call it the Weave grant, to go out and help build the workforce for advanced tech and particularly into the semiconductors. And that is also, I think that NOFO is coming out. It hasn't come out, but there was a meeting to talk about what is workforce and the importance. And I think we all recognize it is very important. There's a lot of industries, but manufacturing in particular, for the last few decades has not been the one that everybody tells their kids, go run and become a machine welder. It's not, most parents aren't saying that, but how do we move that? But realizing that a lot of these jobs are not what people think it was from the 1940s and 50s. It's really different and working with technology. And so part of that is trying to get an educational center, or they're saying a center of excellence around semiconductors in particular, because those jobs, the equipment changes almost every 18 months. So you are trained up on something to be trained up again. And so how do we do that? But there is a lot of opportunity, especially through the MEP network, of trying to figure out how do we cross collaborate to bring more bodies, but also to upskill them and train them into the new things like sensors. How do you use that? How do you read it out and actually program a lot of what needs to go onto the manufacturing floor?
okay. Thank you very much. If there's no further questions or any other comments from Bob or Pravina, I think we can wrap up today. So anything else, Dr. Parker?
No, thank you so much, Pravina, Bob, and certainly Jessica. Thank you so much for hosting this event today.
Yeah, I want to echo that and just thank you both, Bob and Pravina, for being with us this morning and sharing your expertise with our members and this group. And also South Central College, to you, Dr. Parker, as well as your team that's on today. We just thank you for your partnership and support. And so again, I mentioned this session was recorded, but if you think of something after the fact or whatnot, don't hesitate to reach out and we'll be sharing the contact information as well as the slides and content. So thank you all for participating, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica.
Thank
You
you.
guys.
Bye.